Next up, we have Dr. Hassan Abushukair. Dr. Abushukair, I will now turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Hassan Abushukair. I am a fifth-year medical student from Jordan University of Science and Technology. I was fortunate enough last year, I was awarded the Global Scholar in Training Award from the American Association for Cancer Research, as well as the Young Investigator Award from the Society of Hematologic Oncology. A bit about my career trajectory so far. I finished high school in 2018, and since then I have been enrolled in an MD program that finishes in 2024. I aim to get into internal medicine residency after that and do a Hem-Onc fellowship, as I am interested in translational cancer research. Now, as for research requirements in my university, basically you have to be enrolled in a program in order to be able to apply for student grants or take part into ongoing faculty research projects. Next, please. Okay, now from my experience identifying mentors based on my real life experience, first you have mentors within your own institute, and those in our university, we have a formal pairing where our university assigns students to professors, and there is the non-formal part where you simply email or visit professors in their office hours and communicate with them based on your interest. Now, there's another option to look for mentors outside your institute, and I think in some cases where you're interested in certain career pathway that simply isn't available in your home institute, professional associations can be of a lot of value. I give a lot of credit to professional associations such as ASCO, American Society of Clinical Oncology, AACR, American Association for Cancer Research. One example of them, ASCO has a virtual mentorship program where they simply pair mentees, trainees, students with senior scientists almost a year and a half. Also, professional meetings, international conferences, AACR, ASCO, and other examples where I think it's a great platform as a mentee to display your interest, your skills, and hopefully a lot of the interactions you have with your peers, with other scientists, can later on flourish into mentorship dynamics, as what happened in my case. And lastly, social media with a question mark. And I think social media can be, if utilized in the proper way, could actually lead to mentorship dynamics. In my case, there is, for example, a Facebook group. It's called the Jordanian American Physicians, where as students, you can interact with American physicians from Jordan, and hopefully a lot of them, in my case especially, could lead to mentorship. And another example I would like to give is Twitter, the academic side of Twitter. For me, the Twitter app, like when I want to open it, is similar to scrolling down on PubMed or whatever, because you have scientists, researchers from all over the world talking and communicating about their science, their research, the latest trend. And as students, I think that's a great opportunity to interact with such scientists. And sometimes you can actually reach out for them, ask them questions, and you never know, you can be talking to your next mentor. Now, there's an S after the word mentor. Does that mean we need or we should seek for more than one mentor? I think in some instances, having more than one mentor can help give you feedback, enlighten you to more than one aspect of your career. So, for example, someone could be specifically for the scientific part, other stuff for career development, and so on. And now, how do we seal the deal? I think a lot of mentees, we get stuck in the phase between asking someone or initiating the process of wanting the mentorship dynamic and actually starting that mentorship. And I think the key here to get from that slump and get over the hump is simply rooted in your interest, your perseverance as a mentee. Sometimes your mentor or your potential mentor would tell you they would follow up with you, and they simply don't because they're busy. And in that case, I think you have to be perseverance. You have to show interest as much as possible. Now, moving on to the utopian mentorship dynamic, again, from my point of view, from my experience, I think mentorship should be always rooted in long and short-term goals. Sometimes the mentorship ends with those goals, other times it goes beyond that. And also the 3 C's, you might have heard of them. Clarity, from day one, helps you as a mentee avoid being put in uncomfortable situations. Communication, communication, communication. It goes even beyond mentorship. And commitment, I think it should be balance and proportionate commitment from both parties to make things work for you as a mentee and for the mentor. And I wanted to bring out a point, an example where we have deadlines or routine updates. And this happened with me with one of my mentors, where I'm usually used to having deadlines for the tasks or the projects we work on, but my mentor suggested that perhaps routine updates either weekly or monthly, where we would meet and simply talk about what has been happening. And I think for me that turned out to be more productive, as it comes with less stress and a more sustainable approach to getting your work done. And lastly, I think as mentees, we should always take the initiative, especially in the beginning. That might sound counterintuitive, but I think definitely we should take the lead. We should try to establish the common interest, set meeting agendas beforehand, just to ensure that, as mentioned, sometimes mentors can be busy. So this way it can be more sustainable. And always ask. For me, in the beginning, I think I would usually struggle to simply directly ask for stuff, and it turns out to be easier than what I thought. It saves you a lot of time, a lot of effort sometimes. So just always ask. And lastly, I want to thank you all for attending. I want to thank my family, my mom, my dad, my sisters, who have been my life mentors from day one. And I would like to thank Dr. Saeed, Dr. Karapetian, Dr. Hadidi, Dr. Aburus, and Dr. Madani for being gracious and giving me their time as their mentee. And thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Abushukair, for those great remarks and sharing your insights and highlighting all of the various ways in which mentees can try to help identify mentors. Thank you. We're bringing up the other panelists now, and again, ask the audience to submit their questions to the chat. Let's get started with the first question from Sumit Pereira. Being placed in a low or middle income country, getting a research grant is very challenging. What are the alternatives? And I might add to that, how can mentorship play a role in addressing some of those challenges? Who would like to begin responding to that question? Dr. Abushukair, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think definitely the theme of financial constraints is constant among low to middle income countries across different regions. And I think this is where the role comes of international funding agencies or grants which are available. Like, for example, there is an International Development Award from the American Society of Clinical Oncology, the Conquer Cancer Award, which is specifically designated to applicants from low to middle income countries. So I think those can always be, I would say, short-term alternative to the root of the problem, having shortage in funding. And toward the next part of the question, how mentors can help you, I think definitely you are currently doing or being the best version of yourself that can apply to that such grant. But again, I think it does not address the core issue of having the shortage in funding. So yeah, that's, I think, my point of view.
Can we interfere here from other panels?
Do any of the other panelists have anything to share? Before we
Yes,
open it up? Go ahead, Dr. Kassaman.
So one other thing I would encourage my colleagues from LMIC to do is network. So if you engage with the networks, and especially in the conferences, when we go for conferences, you find that you will meet people. And what I do, I get the contacts of the people in the conferences, and then I engage them later. And then also on LinkedIn, I've found very useful information on LinkedIn. And you see, sometimes people didn't know or don't use LinkedIn as a source of information to get contacts. So I've had opportunities even for research training and other small grants by just through networking and linking up with people. And so when you have those collaborations, then it is easy. So like, for example, my mentor, I got to know her from a conference. So sometimes I would encourage my colleagues to pay for the conference, and you go to the conference with an agenda that you want to go and establish your networks and also get people you can collaborate with. And these are the people who can actually direct you to where the grants or the funds for research can be obtained from. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
May I say something here?
Yes, go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, hi.
Al-Sagir.
My name is Naji Al-Sagir. I'm from another panel, I guess, but I would like to say something here regarding the issue of funding. You know, Dr. Hassan raised a nice, reminded everybody about ASCO. You know, ASCO, we started this International Travel Award back in 2002, Dr. Larry Einhorn. Then it developed into the IDEA program, you know, having spent 1 week, you know, in the US at the conference and at an institution. And then there is also another 1 or 2 years award. Yes, this is great. I encourage everyone to, you know, apply. You have to apply this. You have to have a project, you know, when you want to apply for it with the IDEA and other grants. But for funding, you know, I can say that I work at the American University of Beirut, creating an atmosphere of research, you know, being demanding for research, the institution can, you know, what we do at our institution, there is what we call Dean's tax, you know, there is money that is taken out of our, you know, generated income, placed in research funds, intramural funding, we call it. And it is really very helpful. And we specify, you know, for junior faculty, and of course, they usually do have research assistants who are junior. So that's something that every institution can work on and, you know, develop. And also we should, you know, promote it at, although we live in low middle income countries, there are always people who are very well off in those countries. And if we show what we do, we may get donors. We do get donors, you know, in those low middle income countries. There are people who can be encouraged to donate. There is, of course, we have to work on it. And I remind Dr. Hassan and also all people who work in Arab countries, the King Hussein Cancer Research Award, which is, you know, from the King Hussein Cancer Foundation, has really awards for research, really for young researchers. You have a research project, you can apply, and you can get good amounts of money if you do have a good research project in the area. So that is something that is really in progress and is improving.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. We do have limited time, so I want to make sure we address some of the other attendee questions that we have. From Christopher Lofredo, have any of the mentees had a mentor-mentee contract in place to help define expectations and set up guidelines for the relationship? Who would like to address this? Has anyone had any experiences with a specific contract that helps to define some of those expectations? Oh, go ahead, Dr. Abushukair.
Yeah, so not necessarily like a literal contract, but like me and my mentor, once we prepared like an agenda file, a plan for the next 4 months where we would set up like the expected outcomes, the expected commitment from my end and so on. So I don't think it was like a contract in the sense that it was obligating or something like that. So I'm not sure if this is what they are referring to, but we definitely are prepared like a plan for the next 4, 5, 6 months.
Sure. Thank you. And perhaps that's something that we can discuss later this afternoon as well. The next question is from Andres Diaz. Is Twitter a useful media outlet to connect with mentors and collaborators? Or are there other outlets? I know Dr. Kassaman mentioned LinkedIn. You mentioned Twitter in your comments, Dr. Abushukair. Are there other outlets also that we should be thinking about?
También existe ResearchGate y
I'm sorry, did you mention ResearchGate?
sí, ResearchGate, en la cual es posible contactar otros investigadores. Ellos comparten ahí los artículos y uno puede discutir sobre los artículos o sobre diferentes técnicas de laboratorio.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next question then. The next question is from Noor Bader. What are some routes one can present their pre-existing skills or knowledge to network successfully without having existing published research with potential mentors?
I think mentors can also speak up here.
Go ahead, Dr. Abushukair.
Yes, I was just thinking sometimes I think having like the question mentioned, without having prior experience, you would in my like previous situations, I would like prepare a proposal, like a mini proposal that could serve as a proof of concept that I am interested in this topic, and if we were to go about it, this is how I would do it. It's not necessarily like the best or the most accurate, but at least this shows that you're willing to put in the effort and to put in the time regardless of the outcome. So I think a semi mini research proposal or an idea proposal, also an elevator pitch can also and who you are trying to communicate with and talk with. But yeah.
Those are some great ways to kind of showcase your existing skills and your knowledge. Dr. Singh, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a small thing, like in addition to preparing like a concept note or a brief, proposal or idea that you have in mind, if you have had like any abstract or conference presentations, that can also be shared, even if you didn't have any existing publications. Also, maybe researching about the mentors with whom you want to work on, the kind of work they're doing, maybe studying a bit more about them before you reach out may also help to identify if there are overlaps or synergies in your research interest and the work that's already been done by your mentors may help.
That's a great point. It's very important to do your homework. Okay.
I also wanted to respond regarding, the question where someone asked whether having a contract between mentor and mentee helps. So I didn't have any experience with the contract, but speaking from my experience of applying for training grant opportunities, a lot of these career development grant grants, they require a letter of support from your mentors, and that needs to clearly lay out a plan of like how the mentor is going to help you during your project or during your study or your grant. So you need to discuss beforehand when you apply for these training grant opportunities, like what skills your mentors will bring in, how they will support you with the design of your study or the conduct or even publications. So like, and this can be a really detailed letter of support, which runs into like 5 or 6 pages.
Thank you. We have another question from Christy Altwood. This is my first year of a postdoc fellowship with NIH and FDA. That's the National Institutes of Health and the Food and Drug Administration. It's a 3-year fellowship. Should I start my grant applications now or next year or in year 2? So in a 3-year fellowship, when is the right time to start working on those grant applications?
Joanne, if I may say that this is a different situation because the person who asked is the NIH, and she can contact one of us and we can help her. We can help them navigate.
Sure. Thank you, Sudha. The next question is from David Asakitogum. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. What is the feeling like when your mentor has the course to ask for a change of the course of your career path? What is the feeling like when your mentor asks for a change in the course of your career path? Has anybody experienced that?
Yo no he tenido la experiencia de tener un cambio de línea de mi carrera, pero creo que dependería mucho de cuál es la situación. Si es un cambio, pues que después de analizarlo muy bien, es para bien, para mejorar el camino pues que se va a seguir, pues sería muy, muy importante seguir el consejo. Sin embargo, a pesar de ser un aprendiz y estar en una posición de pues menor categoría, digámoslo así. Yo creo que cuando uno tiene ya un plan y está seguro de sus objetivos, es importante pues que eso se discuta muy bien y que si uno quiere mantenerse en el camino, pues, cuenta cuáles son las por las cuales le están aconsejando también. Es necesario pensarlo con cabeza fría y tal vez consultarlo con otros mentores. También por eso es muy importante no solo tener un mentor.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add anything? I have a question for the panelists. What's the one thing that you would want participants to take away from your experiences that you think would be most beneficial to them in pursuing mentorship opportunities? Go ahead, Dr. Tassaman.
Yeah, I think simple takeaway would be to start by putting yourself out there. Simply just being sometimes in the right time, in the right place, regardless of if you think you are ready or not, can help you secure those kind of relationships. So simply just being out there, definitely doing your due diligence, doing your homework, but I think sometimes we can be tough on ourselves where we set a high threshold to when we can go and start asking and connecting with people. So I think sometimes it's easier than that. Do your homework, do your background check, but eventually you have to get out there and get out of your comfort zone, I would say.
Thank you. Dr. Kassaman?
Just to add to what he has said, that the importance of collaboration and just emphasizing on what you must define what you want, and you also must be flexible. Allow some flexibility. It is a give and take. So, for example, coming from a low-middle income country, somebody comes from the developed world, they may not actually understand our challenges. For example, midway, there's no electricity, so there's no Wi-Fi, so I had to switch to my phone to be able to continue with the meeting. So there must be that, but you also must have an open communication system where you are able to tell your mentor the challenges you're facing. If you had a certain deadline, you had a timeline to submit some work maybe, and you faced a challenge, you must be upfront and tell them so that you don't plan to meet. And then when it is now time for the meeting, you're saying, oh, you know, I did not manage. So there must be that open communication and also build trust. You must build some element of trust. Then you will achieve what you have set out to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kassaman. Dr. Singh, if you had to pick one thing to share, what would it be?
Thank you, Joanne. I think in my experience, I would say the key takeaway from my experience is having a goal-oriented approach based on your short-term or long-term career objectives, and persistence, you know, despite facing failures. That's, I think, is the key. And sometimes also there is a role of this, you know, an element of serendipity. So like Hassan said, just feel free, don't be afraid to ask for help or for mentorship, because you never know, the person whom you're approaching is also maybe looking for someone similar to, you know, work on a project or a grant that they have recently received. So the serendipity, in my case, also has played an important role. So I would say persistence, having goal-oriented approach, and never being afraid of asking for help.
Thank you. As we wrap up the panel, Dr. Estrada Flores, just pause to see if you would like to add anything. We may be having some technical difficulties there. I just want to thank all of the panelists for sharing their stories, their really great insights with us this morning.